Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. If you're like me, you love a good story, and let's be honest, Reddit is a gold mine. From crazy encounters to unbelievable coincidences, we're exploring the best and most talked about stories the Reddit community has cooked up. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and get ready for some serious entertainment. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Reddit adventures. Okay, let's start. My scariest encounter was on a hike in the Swiss Alps. This happened in 2019. I had always been an avid hiker, and when I heard about the beautiful trails in the Swiss Alps, I knew I had to go. So I packed my bags and set off on my adventure. The first few days were amazing. The views were breathtaking, and I felt like I was in a postcard. I had the trails all to myself, and I was loving every minute of it. But as I was hiking deeper into the mountains, I started to feel like I was being followed. The trail was deserted, and I had not seen any other hikers for hours, but I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I kept turning around to see if anyone was behind me, but there was never anyone there. I tried to tell myself that it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the feeling persisted. I started to feel paranoid and anxious, my heart racing with fear. I was so focused on the feeling of being followed that I didn't even notice the beauty of the mountains anymore. The feeling became even stronger as the day went on, and I started to hear strange noises behind me. At first I thought it was just the wind, but as I turned around I saw something that made my blood run cold. There, standing on the trail behind me, were three creatures. They were unlike anything I had ever seen before. They were tall and thin, with elongated limbs and heads that seemed too large for their bodies. Their skin was a sickly gray color, and their eyes were black and soulless. I froze, unsure of what to do. The creatures just stood there, staring at me. I pulled my phone out to take a picture of them, but as soon as I did, they started running towards me, and it made me panic. I lost my balance, fell on the ground, losing my phone in the process. I knew I had to get away fast, so I got up and started running as fast as I could. I ran for what felt like hours, but I couldn't shake them. Every time I looked back over my shoulder, I saw that the creatures were following me. They were always there, just behind me, their elongated limbs allowing them to keep pace with ease. I was terrified, and I didn't know what to do. After a while, I stumbled upon what looked like an abandoned bunker deep in the mountains. I had heard that there were many bunkers made by the Swiss Army in the Alps, but I never thought I would find one. I pushed open the rusty door, and as soon as I stepped inside, chills went down my spine. The walls were covered in carvings depicting the same creatures that were following me. I knew that I was not the first person to see these creatures. A tunnel went further into the mountain, but it was pitch black inside of it, and I decided to stay within the first room. Old planks and empty beer cans were scattered on the floor. I barricaded the door and huddled in a corner, trying to catch my breath. But I could still hear them outside, rustling in the bushes. I peeked out a small opening in the wall and saw that they were hiding behind the trees, watching the bunker. They would occasionally poke their heads out, their black eyes staring at me. This went on for the whole night, and I was too scared to sleep. In the morning, the creatures were still there, lurking outside the bunker. I knew that I couldn't stay there forever, so I decided to explore deeper into the bunker. I walked down the dark and damp corridor, feeling my way with my hands, touching the walls and using an old rotten broom as my guide. As I walked, I felt as if someone was watching me, but I knew it couldn't have been the creatures, as I would probably have heard them destroy the barricaded door of the bunker. I finally reached the end of the corridor and opened the door to a large room. Inside, I felt something hanging on my right. I couldn't quite tell what it was. Could be clothes, maybe a uniform, or old rags. But I felt a metal helmet. It was clearly a helmet. And on my left, I felt a machine. I couldn't tell what it was, but I heard a soft humming noise coming from it. I reached out blindly, trying to find the source of the noise, and my hand landed on a switch. I flipped it on, and the machine came to life. Suddenly, the room was flooded with light, and it blinded me for a second. I could see that this room also had carvings against the walls, just like the ones I had seen previously. Even though the room looked odd and creepy, The fact that it wasn't pitch black anymore was somewhat relieving. There was a greenish door leading further into the bunker, and I noticed that the machine also triggered lights in the corridor that led me to this room. I turned around and got scared for a second when I saw the old army uniform hanging on the wall. It looked damp and moldy, as if it had been here for decades. I was starting to feel lightheaded, which was probably normal. After all, I hadn't slept for over a day, and the only food I had eaten was a local chocolate-coated wafer bar and a small sausage. I didn't pack a lot of food as there were small villages or rest stops everywhere in the Alps, and I had plans to sleep at a hotel the night prior. I was wondering if they tried to contact me or alerted the authorities. Maybe a search party was looking for me. But there was no way they would find me in this bunker. I sat down on the ground and leaned against the wall, trying to gather my thoughts and come up with a plan. As I sat there, I noticed a shadow on the wall, coming from the entrance corridor. At first I thought I was hallucinating, but no, I wasn't. It was moving. It was them. The creatures that had been following me were now inside the bunker. I quickly got up and slammed the door shut, which luckily could be closed from the inside. As soon as I did, I heard them rushing towards the door. I turned to the other door, but it was locked. I was trapped, with the creatures closing in on me. I could hear them scratching at the door, their elongated limbs reaching through the cracks. I remember thinking, this is it. This is how I die. I knew that I was going to die there, alone in that bunker, in a foreign country. But then I remembered the old Swiss Army uniform hanging on the mannequin. For some reason, my survival instincts kept making me look at that uniform. Was it because uniforms have a sense of authority? Was it because of its rotten smell? Was I going crazy? I don't know. I quickly put it on and grabbed the helmet, hoping it would give me some protection if the creatures attacked me. The creatures broke through the door, and I braced myself for the worst. But as they approached me, they suddenly stopped. They stared at me for a moment, then turned and fled back into the wilderness, as if they were scared. I never found out why they didn't attack me, but I was just glad to be alive. I quickly made my way back to civilization, but until today I never spoke of the creatures I had encountered. I knew no one would believe me anyway, and I didn't want to be known as the crazy hiker who claimed to have been followed by monsters in the mountains. I hope you will enjoy this story. Now let's move to our second story. As a dispatcher, this is the scariest call I've ever gotten. 911. What's your emergency? I said as I answered the phone. There's a bat in my house. A loud scream came over the speaker. Send someone to come and get it. All right, ma'am. I will send animal control over as soon as possible. The caller thanked me and said she will be outside waiting. I pressed the button to dispatch the nearest unit. I sat in my cubicle doodling with my ballpoint pen on a piece of blank white paper. Being a dispatcher isn't always easy, especially in the middle of nowhere, Montana, with a population of 500. We get random calls about bobcats, bison, and bears coming in the front yards, teenagers prank calling because they are bored, and of course the regular hunting emergencies. But all of this is few and far between. Sometimes we could go hours without getting a call, which made it hard when you work the night shift alone. Kara, I heard my straight-laced boss say as he came down the hallway. I'm here, I yelled back, still doodling on the white paper. I could hear his staggered footsteps coming my direction. Oh, hey, he said, popping his head around the corner. I'm leaving. Do you need anything before I go? I think I'm good. I held up my now cold coffee. I'll turn off the rest of the lights then. Have a great night. I heard the sound of the lights turning off down the hallway. It's those fluorescent lights that make a buzzing sound whenever you're under them. I hated when they get turned off. Everything gets so silent. Being in this building at night all by yourself, the imagination can get the best of you. I sat at my desk and looked at the 7 computer screens. On one screen, I could see exactly where the emergency responders were located at any given moment. I started memorizing the street names in our designated area. At this time, nothing was going on. It had been a very quiet night. I took a sip of my cold coffee and started jotting down my grocery list for the next day. At this point, the coffee was only doing so much to keep me awake at 1 a.m. What do I need? I asked out loud. I wrote down what I needed. Chicken, vegetables, toilet paper, wine, multiple bottles of wine. I finished making my list, folded it into my jeans pocket. A beeping sound started coming through my headphones, meaning someone was calling in. I looked up as a name and number flashed on the screen in front of me. 911, what's your emergency? I said clearly to the person on the other line. I need help, a child's voice said. What's your name? What can I help you with? I said back to the frightened young girl. I need help, she said again. I replied, I can't help you unless you tell me what's wrong. And then the phone line went dead. I immediately dialed the number back, but there was no dial tone and it wouldn't reconnect. I decided to call one of the responding officers to check it out. Jenkins, I need you to respond to 5689 Hickory Valley Road. There could be a possible VIC. I tried calling her back, but I got no answer. I said into my headphones. Thanks, Kara. Hope you're having a good night all by your lonesome. He started laughing. What are you going to do all by yourself in that little cubicle of yours? You're an asshole. As a matter of fact, I am having a great night by myself. Keep me updated, I said back. Roger that. I sat back in my chair looking at the right-hand screen. A red dot started moving slowly toward the area where the young girl called from. I watched as it got closer and closer. Then the dot just stopped. This usually meant the responding officer got to the location or close to it. Our map showed streets, but it didn't pinpoint the exact spot. As I waited for Jenkins to call me back, I took another sip of coffee. I watched the clock as it slowly passed second by second, minute by minute. I was about to ring him back when the computers lit up. 911 dispatch. What's the exact location of your emergency? I looked up as the name and phone number flashed on the screen. This time I said the name out loud. Olivia Taylor. I tried calling you back, but we couldn't get an answer. A responding officer should be there shortly. I said fast, but in a stern manner. Why won't you help me? She whimpered. I heard her crying on the other line. We are trying to help you, Olivia. Someone should be there any second, I promise you. Can you stay on the line with me? I said while trying to get my shit together. Closet. You can find us in the closet. I could hear another distant whimpering that wasn't coming from the VIC on the line. Olivia, is there someone else with you? My heart felt like it was going to fall out of my chest. I have to go. He will hear me, she cried out. Who will hear you, Olivia? And the phone went dead again. I looked on the map and noticed Jenkins' spot had not moved. Growing concerned, I called him back. The phone rang and rang, but finally he answered. Jenkins, he said with authority. Oh, thank God. I took a second to catch my breath. My heart was pounding a mile a minute. What, Kara? You can't handle being in that place by yourself. You have to call me all the time? He tried to make a joke, but soon realized I wasn't playing around. What's going on? Are you okay? I got another call from the VIC. What's your ETA? I closed my eyes and tried to stay calm. This is part of the job requirement. Waiting for backup. This place is out of the middle of nowhere. There's only a path through the woods that the cruiser can't fit through. We have to go on foot. Should only be another couple of minutes. I took a look at the screen. I could see 2 dots moving closer to Jenkins. Call me once you get to the property. She is hiding in the closet. I believe there is someone else with her, I informed him. Thanks for the update. I'll call you once I reach the site. And he hung up. I had to take a moment to decompress. I walked down the long hallway to the bathroom. As I turned on the light, it flickered to the sound of my heartbeat. The familiar buzzing sound calmed me as I splashed cold water on my face. I could tell my color had changed as I looked in the mirror. The normal tan hue was now pale white and my pupils were dilated. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, I reassured my reflection. As I walked out of the restroom, I could hear a beeping sound coming from my headphones again. I ran to my cubicle thinking it was Jenkins giving me an update, but as I saw the name on the screen, my stomach immediately dropped. "Olivia, I know this is you. Are you okay?" I looked at the screen with the map. "The officers are on their way. They should be there in less than a minute." There was no response. "Are you there? Can you hear me, Olivia?" A whimper came over the other line. "It's too late," she finally said. "He's in the room." He heard me. "Who is in the room with you? Please tell me so I can let the officers know." I took a deep breath, determined to stay calm. "He has a gun." I heard a door open as a loud scream came over the line. I could hear 2 loud rounds of popping. And silence. "Shit! Shit! Shit!" I screamed out loud. I knew what this meant. Tears started rolling down my face. The screen started lighting up again. This time the name said Carlos Jenkins. I took a deep breath as I answered it. "The VIC just called again. Could have a DOA, Jenkins. You took too much fucking time." I yelled into the phone. "How has anyone been calling you, Cora?" he said, confused. "Don't play this game with me right now. Have you reached the destination or not?" I looked at the screen in front of me. We reached the cabin about a mile off the main road. I hate to tell you this, but everyone is gone. There was silence on his end. Shit. I rubbed my face. The skin began to get hot from anger. "But I don't understand how anybody could have called you tonight." I looked up from my desk, confused. "What do you mean?" "We found 3 sets of skeletal remains. One was a male adult, presumed to be the father, and 2 young girls. The remains have to be at least 12 months old." My chest got tight and the room started spinning. I was about to pass out. "The weird thing is," Jenkins started to say, "we found the 2 female skeletons in the closet, but one had a cordless phone in their hand. Trying to get help, I guess. Enjoyed this Reddit story? Then smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload." Now our last story topic is: I was lost in a national park. Those were the scariest and most bizarre 2 days of my life. On my 17th birthday, I ran away from home. It was just my dad and I. He'd physically abused me for years and blamed me for my mother's death. I knew that no one would come looking for me. My plan was to hitchhike to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park with just a razor, a bag of Oreos as my last meal, and a jug of water. I left that morning before dawn, fully knowing that he wouldn't be awake for another 2 hours. My plan was to walk as far as I could before asking for a ride. However, I had a minivan pull over almost instantly. "Need a ride, hun?" It was a woman who appeared to be in her mid-30s. She had 2 kids in the back, a girl around the age of 7 and a boy no older than 4. "Sure, that'd be great," I say, taking a seat in the front. I liked this woman. I planned to be picky with who my hitchhiker was, knowing that they were going to be the last person that I ever spoke to before committing suicide. Let's call her Cindy. She told me that she'd raised her 2 children, Mark and Emily, all alone. Her husband had died in a car accident 2 years after Mark's birth. This was his favorite hiking spot, she said. She asked me what I was doing all alone. I lied and said I'd just graduated high school and planned to hike around the national park, hoping to find myself. She believed that load of crap, or maybe she knew I was lying and didn't want to call me out on it. Either way, I enjoyed the hour-long drive with them. For once, I felt like I was part of a fully functional family. When we arrived at a nice hiking area, Cindy offered for me to have lunch with them. For a minute there, I almost changed my plans. I thought that maybe life could be worthwhile. This beautiful family was an exception to the rule. I could be that exception too. But I stuck to my plan and continued on, but not before accepting some jerky and a few snacks from Cindy, who was adamant about preventing me from being so skinny. I waved goodbye and searched for the perfect spot to end my life. I thought about just sitting until sunset deep in the woods and ending it all. I walked for hours without seeing another person. I hadn't felt content with any of the locations I'd found yet, or maybe I was chickening out. Finally, I found an opening in between the rocks that exposed a newly growing area of land filled with wildflowers. I crouched down on a rock and waited, but I grew tired and relentless of waiting. I marked the spot with an Oreo and decided to keep walking around the trail until sunset. It was a particularly hot day that Friday. There wasn't a sign of the wind even rustling in between the trees, but something felt particularly cold. I could hear some whispers coming from beneath the bushes and a young child giggling. "Hello?" I asked, crouching closer to the bush. But before I could do anything else, something pushed me down the hill. When I finally awoke, my head felt cold and filled with intense pressure. I felt the blood dripping from my temple and wiped it on my tank top. Although disoriented, I was still coherent. I looked up to see the child staring up at me. He was around 6 years old and asked me if I wanted to play hide and seek. "Where are your parents?" I asked him. "Come on, I'll show you," he said, giggling as I slowly crawled for a few centimeters before gaining the strength to get up. "Where are we going?" I asked. But he didn't reply. I slowly followed after him. Soon enough, he had become a blur and I could see the outline of his red t-shirt. He told me to keep going, motioning me forward, but I could feel myself passing in and out of consciousness. "If you don't get up, they'll find you like they found me," he whispered. I passed out cold. By the time I woke up, it was dark. My plan would have to wait. I needed to find the child who was lost in the forest. I wanted to help him above everything else. I called for him. "Boy? Little boy?" I yelled. He never came, but a ruffling in the bushes startled me as I stood up trying to regain my balance. I reached for the razor and held it out. "I have a weapon," I yelled. It was a shadow of a person, an older woman around the age of 40. Her bushy hair was covered in twigs as I saw her teeth shine in the dark. She was either smiling or growling. "Who are you?" I asked. "Who are you?" she replied. "I'm looking for my daughter." I remember mumbling saying I didn't see a girl, only a young boy. I asked her if we could stick together, but she ran off. I stood up and tried to chase after her, but she disappeared. Then I heard a loud sound coming from the woods. It was some sort of siren or foghorn. I trembled and covered my ears. This continued for 10 minutes. I sprawled into a ball on the ground until it stopped. Then I ran. I grabbed my jug of water, took a few sips, and continued running. I ran until I grew exhausted and couldn't run anymore. That's when I saw the little boy again about a half a mile away. He pointed to the left of me and continued running. I slowly walked after him, dragging my legs and forcing myself to walk. I made my way to a shallow stream and continued on the creek's path. That's when I saw a tattered red shirt, similar to the little boy's that I had just seen. Except this one seems far older and abused over time. It hung in the trees as the slight breeze moved it back and forth. I heard more whispering around me. This time it was various voices. "Where is my daughter? I'm so cold. Don't come looking for me." Then they all went quiet as I heard a slowly moving heartbeat that finally stopped. I screamed for someone to show themselves, but the voices just stopped. From a distance, I heard the little boy laughing. I continued up the creek until ending up at the same spot I had started at near the wildflowers. How did I end up back there? I looked at the sun, still fully luminescent in the sky. I reached for the switchblade and stared at the metal reflection in the sun. I thought about the little boy. I wondered where he was and what fucked up game he was trying to play with me. I threw the blade off into the hill and started crying. That's when I heard footsteps coming around from behind me. Amelia? It was Cindy and her 2 kids. I asked what she was doing out so deep in the woods. "We followed a lost boy who said he needed help," she said. I didn't tell Cindy about the past 2 days. Instead, I drove with them up to Arkansas. It's been a year since I was lost in the forest, and not a day goes by that I don't think about that little boy and wonder what happened to him and who he was running from. So, what do you think really happened? Do you believe these stories? Share your theories in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're alerted when we upload new videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.